Am I the asshole for refusing to allow my husband to apologize to our daughter for ruining her life? My daughter, 19, is going through a tough time. On top of the obvious difficulties of the pandemic, she has been struggling with depression. Her classes are all online, so she lives with us. My husband and I are both working from home, so we are very involved with her day to day. We do our best to engage her, family walks, game night, cooking together, but she is still feeling pretty down. She sees a therapist online, but I am not privy to how that is going. In the last couple days she has been displaying a lot of resentment over her childhood. I'm specifically talking about ages 12 to 14. During those years, her father, my husband, was diagnosed with prostate cancer and was going through aggressive chemo. He has recovered enough to live a normal life. I won't lie, those were very tough years for our family. My daughter is an only child and was used to our full attention and engagement. It was a hard transition for her to have her father not be able to care for her like he used to, and myself having to split my time between her and my husband. We had a lot of support from our family and we were able to maintain her lifestyle with their help. She didn't have to quit any teams, she never missed school. I do acknowledge that emotionally there was damage, so we did family therapy for years. Yesterday she was in a bad mood. During dinner I asked her what was going on and she went into this explosive rant about how many issues she developed due to us. Apparently we are responsible for her grades slipping, her relationships failing, her weight gain, etc. She tied it all back to her missing crucial development during the years where her father had cancer. At one point she says something like, "Has it ever occurred to you that maybe you should apologize? You basically deprived me of a childhood." My husband says, "I'm sorry honey, I could have done better, and I could have done more for you." I shut that down and told her, "No, you are not going to guilt your father into apologizing for having cancer. This is unacceptable. You need to accept that life is not fair and there is very little we can do about it. Go to your room and calm yourself down." She told me to go fuck myself and went to her room. My husband and I have been arguing about how this was handled. He thinks that an apology is not big deal, and he was hurt by what she said, but that he could take it. I think that she is looking for someone to blame for her current unhappiness and that we, as her parents, are easy targets. I also know that my husband already feels a great deal of guilt for putting our family through so much turmoil. I love my daughter and want her to be happy. At the same time, I do believe she is at an age where she needs to take on personal accountability. Am I the asshole here? Too long did not read. Daughter tried to guilt husband into apologizing for having cancer. Edit. I am shocked by the amount of comments and cannot read them all. Thanks to everyone who commented and double thanks to those that awarded the post. I do want to say that, while the concern for my daughter's mental health is encouraging, there is a rather harsh dismissal of my husband's mental health here. As a society I think men are expected too much to just suck it up and take it on the chin. My husband struggles still with his health, the possibility of cancer returning, and his own depression. I value my daughter's mental health, don't get me wrong, but I don't value it above my husband's. I thought what she said was extremely damaging to him and I reacted to that. I do regret the harshness but not the message. Not the asshole. Your daughter is an adult, and as you said, needs to learn that life is not fair. Your husband did not choose to get cancer, or the timing of it. Depression is awful, and I am glad your daughter is seeing a counselor, but it may be worth her visiting her doctor, and seeing if there is more that can be done. Hang in there, mama, but do not feel guilty or let your husband feel guilty, either. Not the asshole. Your daughter needs to learn to take responsibility for her own shit instead of blaming others, especially when it's something out of everyone's control, and the fact that she is so entitled at 19 that she thinks she is owed an apology for her dad fighting for his life against cancer is a really bad sign for how she will handle adult problems. Point out to your husband that letting your daughter think that the world owes her shit will mess her up in the real world, so learning to accept that shit happens and no one owes her fuck all when it does is an important lesson that she needs to learn. She should look into more therapy. Not the asshole. Your daughter is trying to avoid improvement by telling herself two self-destructive things. 1. That she is somehow irreparably harmed, so it's not worth trying to do better, and 2. It's her parents' fault, thus she is not responsible for her own mistakes. This is not the path to health. You can apologize for the ways that you or your husband did not handle yourselves well during his illness. But you are completely right that you cannot allow her to follow a line of thinking where she gets to tell herself that her life is ruined because her dad got cancer. Not the asshole. It's normal for teenagers to blame all of their problems on their parents unfairly. It's not normal to expect an apology for not being the center of attention during a cancer diagnosis. Not the asshole. I'm glad you shut that shit down before your daughter made your husband feel any more unnecessary guilt for, well, getting sick and had to fight for his life so he could still be alive. She's an adult. She's old enough to realize how serious cancer is. She should be thankful her dad has recovered and he's still in her life. Instead she's grasping straws at the one shitty moment and somehow making it about her. Not the asshole. She has become spoilt to the point of not having any empathy for what your husband has gone through. You need to figure out how to either get her to see this or be prepared for a very difficult journey with her. It is easy to blame parents. You take for granted that they love you no matter what. Some forget love doesn't mean they like you as a person. Maybe time to join in on her counseling sessions to figure out why in the world she thinks anyone would be responsible for having cancer. Not the asshole. I lost my mother at 17. My younger brother was 11 and we were out in our own suddenly. Life was impossibly hard. I couldn't imagine blaming my mother for any of it. Nah. Your daughter is an adult who is dealing with complex shit. She blew up and while it sounds like it was possibly asshole behavior, it sounds like she's doing her best overall and this is an isolated incident. You and your husband had two different ideas on how to handle that outburst, both fairly common and neither is actually more correct. Sometimes it's easier to say sorry, sometimes hard truths are better, but it's impossible to know for sure. I don't think Reddit can or should tell you, your husband or your daughter where to go from here. But good luck anyway. Info. The op is rather vague. OP's daughter's complaints don't really match up with the issues cited. Are we sure there isn't something being left out or overlooked here? I know plenty of parents that would leave out their kids' complaints if they feel the complaints are not valid. Either OP's kid is an ass or they're leaving something out. Info. How much did your daughter know about what was happening? When my dad was diagnosed with glioblastoma, our parents only told us he had cancer, not that he wasn't going to survive or how bad it was going to be. My sister and I found out through Google and my brother was sitting in biology class when the teacher nonchalantly told the class that everyone with glioblastoma dies. Without knowing the extent of the disease, we would have reacted very differently to a lot of things. Talk to your daughter how she remembers the time and how you remember it. She is looking at it with a screwed teenager view shadowed with depression. And also talk to her therapist about how to best deal with this. Not the asshole. She's lucky her father didn't die from his cancer. I think she's just using it as an excuse that she feels is the reason for her depression when it's an actual mental illness that doesn't need a reason. Maybe try talking with her about how your husband already feels guilty. IDK, it's not his fault he had cancer and it seems like she doesn't want to accept the fact that her having depression isn't something you can blame on others. Info. What exactly is she asking your husband to apologize for? And what exactly happened that made her feel like she's screwed up? How does she explain her feelings from her perspective? I don't know if it's just me but I feel like we're missing something from the story. It seems very strange to me that she would expect someone to apologize for having cancer. Based alone on what you said. Not the asshole. However, I just find this story to be very one-sided. Personally, I do not think you're the asshole. It's not your husband's fault he got cancer, and in my opinion, she should be thankful that he survived. I can understand being depressed, and I can even, regrettably, understand just looking for an easy target to take it out on. However, cancer was something that was beyond you and your husband's control, and he should not be put into a place of being guilty for it. Not the asshole. She didn't get the attention she was used to because her father had cancer and she has the unmitigated gall to ask him to apologize? What's next? Is she going to ask you to apologize for giving birth to her because she doesn't like how her life has gone for the past 19 years? She is definitely ta. Your daughter was an asshole for saying that to her father, but you are totally ignoring and dismissing her trauma, as you seem to be under the impression that it simply goes away if you go to therapy, which is obviously not always the case. Even if you want to admit it or not, her father's cancer obviously had a profound impact on her, and you dismissing it is an asshole move. Your husband is the only one here who is not in the wrong. He seems to understand that his cancer had more far-reaching consequences than you are willing to admit. This probably would do amazing in our relationship advice. I hope you see this. I'm an only child whose mom had cancer and went through chemotherapy when I was a kid. I was younger than your daughter. I was in 4th grade. I didn't even really realize until my early 20s that I was traumatized and scarred from it. I was deprived of some things in my childhood and I lived with a lot of fear and sadness for years because of my mom's cancer. But that wasn't my mom's fault. Dear God. Just the thought of telling my mom something like that hurts me. Not the asshole. It seems like you guys are doing all you can to help her and no one should have to apologize for having cancer. Info. You say this only started in the last few days. Is she trying to process a trauma from that time that you don't mention? Was she ever worried her father could die? Did she have difficulty having friends or relating to peers during that time? You say she is struggling with depression but don't say when it started. She may be the asshole but it sounds like she is in pain and does need heard. If this is all she has got on you, then she is a very lucky girl and should do what she needs to do to not become a petty and unnecessarily bitter person for the rest of her life. It is okay to call her out on it. I mean, it is also okay to apologize, in the sense of acknowledging that she suffered a real loss too. I'll go with NTA, I'd put NAH but I can't feel very bad for her when she has parents who at least acknowledge her loss. You are the asshole. If your husband didn't mind then what was your problem? Plus just because someone has cancer doesn't mean they also didn't neglect their child or the child feel neglected. His apology might have been a way forward to them having more mutual understanding but you terminated that conversation rather than allow it to develop. She did not ask him to apologize for having cancer but for not taking care of her needs during that time. That is not the same thing and I think you are being immature in equating them. Welcome to Am I the Asshole? Please view our voting guide here, and remember to use only one judgment in your comment. Help keep the sub engaging. Hashtag Dawn, Downvote assholes. Do upvote interesting posts. Click here for our rules and click here for our FAQ. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit message compose to =am I the asshole if you have any questions or concerns. Not the asshole 2 years. 2 years of her father having cancer and she claimed she was deprived of a childhood. Good on you for not playing that game. Don't buy into that bullshit. I have a bipolar relative who has her mother guilted into, I gave my daughter bipolar via my genes. And daughter is a spoiled rotten nightmare who can't hold a job. You have done all any parent could possibly do. Not the asshole. This is so shitty and so tough. Yes, life is not fair. It was especially not fair to your husband. This clearly affected your daughter, and you as well. Has she been seeing a therapist? It's a tough time for mental health right now. Yeah, that's crossing a line saying he should apologize for having cancer. Not the asshole. She's being damn rude and ungrateful. I'm sorry, what? Your daughter is the asshole. Not the asshole. I'm so glad you shut that down. How entitled that she expects an apology for her dad having cancer. Nobody wants cancer. Not the asshole. My dad had cancer. A very aggressive form. He had a 5% chance of survival from the cancer alone, let alone the various treatments he needed to get him to live. He barely made it and he feels massive guilt for what he did to us for so long. It was heartbreaking hearing that from him when we only wanted him to live. I'm so sad she put that on him, but I also feel so sad he was willing to take it on. I imagine she's dealing with a lot on top of the pandemic. Did she ever go to therapy during that time? Or now? Is that an option for her financially speaking? You did the right thing, but I think she needs support. Your daughter sounds incredibly spoiled and entitled. Depression doesn't give her an excuse to be an asshole. My children were young when my husband died of cancer, and my natural reaction to stress is go silent and withdraw all but the most necessary functions. I know those years of treatment and illness damaged my children, as did the awful changes to my husband's personality due to his brain tumor, and my grief and depression after his death. I'm sorry that happened to them, and I know it hurt them. I don't think apologizing to them that it happened damages me or makes it my fault or my husband's fault that he got ill and I was floored by grief. It just acknowledges the hurt that happened. Your husband is a godly saint. Your husband sounds like a real angel. Not the asshole, but it's important to hear her out. Maybe not necessarily apologize, but try see things from her perspective. Really? Apologizing to a kid for having cancer? What in the world is going on these days? NTA daughter is entitled. Not the asshole. Teenagers suck. I imagine having an only child teenager is 10 times worse. But it's particularly hard with the pandemic. You're already doing great with getting her therapy and giving her space to feel her feelings. Don't let her walk all over you. Stand strong. It's worth it in the end. I feel like there is missing context to why the daughter was upset. Sorry, but you are the asshole. Both of my parents were diagnosed when I was 11 and dead by the time I was 19. When it comes to childhood trauma, 19 is not a, you're an adult so get over it, age. I lost my young social life because I needed to worry about my parents and none of my friends understood what I was going through. I know my mom and dad didn't have any choice in the matter, and I will always love them and appreciate what they did do, but it still hit me hard and impacted me for my entire life. I relate to your daughter, and hope you'll find some empathy for what she's experienced in her short time on Earth. Not the asshole. Your husband was not at fault, no matter if your daughter likes it or not. Your daughter needs to grow the hell up, and realize that no one is at fault for your husband's cancer, and that it wasn't anyone's fault she had a though time with her childhood. My father passed down a chronic disease that will affect me until I die, cause me extreme pain for the rest of my life, and cause me to struggle to walk for the rest of my life. And yet I don't blame him. Sicknesses, and shit like that are out of anyone's control. Your daughter sounds pretty entitled. Not the asshole. I went through serious depression in my life. And there's a bunch of reasons. But blaming your feelings on others, even when it's justified, is not the way to handle it. This situation is not justified. At all. I don't mean to be hurtful, but she's acting so beyond spoiled and entitled. The fact she got to keep living her standard of life while your hub was fighting for his, and she has the audacity to throw it in your face is disgusting. Truthfully, Mama, I think you need to let her stand on her own 2 feet. Keep paying for her therapy, but give her a wide berth and let her figure her own shit out. Because helping her is only making her more entitled. I'm absolutely flabbergasted by this. Your poor husband. Info. There's no real detail over what the neglect is or what your daughter's complaints were. It seems as though more is going on here. Someone doesn't attend therapy and claim you have neglected them over nothing. Everyone is jumping on your daughter to blame them and call them selfish and spoilt. Yet people who are suffering from illness can still be assholes. If anything, I would sit down with your daughter and try have a discussion over what her issues are. You say you don't know how the therapy is going. Why not try and find out by talking to her? Nothing will be achieved by just labeling her a spoiled brat and furthering the divide. Not the asshole. Your daughter is a young adult. She's going to continue being immature for a while, but you don't have to take it like that. She crossed the line. Nip it in the bud while you can. I know someone who was coddled their whole life, allowed to blame all his problems on how his parents raised him. Now he's almost 30, still living at home, no degree, working part-time in retail because full-time is too stressful, and the moment anyone asks him to take responsibility for his life he has a tantrum. You don't want that in your life, trust me. Wow, totally not the asshole. Would she rather have some part of her childhood taken away, as she said, or her dad? She is acting entitled and not her age. She should know better and tell her to stop being greedy. Not everything evolve around her. Nobody here is the jerk. It was just a hard time that you are all still struggling with. Patience and compassion for each person is going to be needed for better communication and time to resolve this. Good luck. For this particular situation spelled out here, not the asshole. What concerns me is that there's nothing spelled out for her past age 14 besides family therapy. What went on past the rough times? Was attention refocused on her, or did it remain on your husband? Not the asshole. Your daughter is, though. Not the asshole only child here who had a father that got sick in her teen years. Not once did I ever accuse him of depriving me of my childhood. She needs to take responsibility for her feelings and actions, especially since you and your husband did nothing wrong. She should be grateful she even has you too. She has significantly more than a lot of people. Not the asshole. As someone who lost her dad to cancer, I would give anything to have him back and well. I also suffer with depression and anxiety, and it isn't a nice place. As others have said, life is very unfair at times, and you've done everything in your power to help, therapy, etc. Now it is up to your daughter to work through this. Only she can help the way she feels once therapy and family support have been given. I totally agree your husband should not apologize. Stay safe, and I hope there is a good resolution to this situation soon. Lightly, everyone sucks here, except for your husband. She's not asking you to apologize for him having cancer. She's asking you to acknowledge the loss she suffered and acknowledge her grief. She should have framed it differently to you, because the way she said it comes off as selfish and spoiled, but it's an asshole move of you to dismiss her grief and not acknowledge that it was a hard time for her too. I don't see why you can't say something like, "I'm sorry that, due to unfortunate circumstances, you weren't able to experience the childhood you longed for. But such is life and we did our best." Not the asshole. I've been through similar stuff she has. Dad had a heart attack and cancer when I was 7 to 9 years old, and while I've also had mental health problems because of it, it's absolutely not my dad's fault for getting sick. I understand mental health is extremely rough at times, but she needs to realize that as parents the two of you did the absolute best you could with what you had. I think maybe she's trying to shift the blame onto someone and not realize that it's just circumstantial. But what she told your husband was very rude and hurtful, and you had every right to stand up for him. Not the asshole. An apology won't help her in the long term. She owes one, and is not entitled to revive one. It seems your daughter has yet to learn that others have lives separate from her own, and that she is not the star and everyone is else just supporting actors. Events don't just happen to her, they happen to everyone. She took a period that was scary for you and your whole family and made it an excuse for her issues. Sounds like therapy needs a new focus.